The restaurant wasn't quiet, but somehow the noise never reached her table. She sat near the window, alone, her presence impossible to ignore, even if everyone pretended not to see her. Sleek black chair, steel-rimmed wheels, tailored charcoal suit. Everything about her screamed control, money, and distance. Her name was Cassandra Vale, and the whispers followed her wherever she went. Some said she inherited a steel empire, others that she had built it from nothing with a cutthroat mind and colder heart. All of them, however, whispered one thing with certainty, that she had been in a car accident 10 years ago and hadn't stood since. No one dared to approach her. They watched from across the room, feigning indifference while laughing behind napkins, wondering why a woman so powerful would dine alone, again, always alone. But Cassandra didn't look their way. She was staring at the flame of the small candle on her table, expression unreadable, back straight, fingers interlaced. It was the way of powerful people to look untouchable, and she'd mastered it long before the chair. Until someone interrupted the pattern. The first thing Cassandra noticed was the color red, a code, bright like defiance, moving through the sea of neutral. Then came the voice. "Mind if I sit here?" No mockery. No pity. Just curiosity. Cassandra blinked and looked up. The woman standing before her had deep brown eyes, a loose twist of curls pulled over one shoulder, and a confidence that didn't feel staged. Cassandra tilted her head slightly. "You're not lost. I'm exactly where I want to be," the woman replied, smiling, pulling the chair out before waiting for permission. Cassandra didn't stop her. It was such an unusual moment, so far outside the curated loneliness she had built around herself, that she allowed it, if only to see what this stranger would do next. "Do you always sit with strangers?" Cassandra asked, watching her. "Only the ones who look like they're pretending not to be lonely," the woman said. "I'm Elise, by the way." Cassandra's brow lifted. Elise. No last name. No introduction of status. No nervousness. It was almost unsettling. "And what do you want from me, Elise?" "Nothing," Elise said, pouring herself a glass of water, like she belonged there. "Or maybe a conversation. Is that too expensive to ask from a billionaire?" The edges of Cassandra's mouth tugged upward before she could stop herself. It had been a long time since someone didn't flinch around her. "Most people don't sit with me unless they want something. A deal. A favor. Money. Well, I don't want any of that. I just want to know why you looked like you wanted to scream, but chose to stare at a candle instead." That made Cassandra pause. Her fingers loosened slightly from their perfect grip. "You're very direct. You're very guarded," Elise said, just as easily. Silence fell between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Cassandra watched her, this bold stranger in red who disrupted the carefully controlled loneliness she'd lived in for a decade. Elise didn't ask about the chair. She didn't lower her voice or tiptoe around it. She didn't act like Cassandra was broken or tragic. And that, perhaps, was the most disarming thing of all. "Tell me," Elise said suddenly, leaning forward with her elbow on the table, "what would happen if you let someone stay for dessert?" Cassandra considered her. Elise was pretty, but not in a glossy, manufactured way. Her beauty came from something alive behind her eyes. She was strange, unpredictable, dangerous to the walls Cassandra had built. And she'd asked not for a future or a favor, just dessert. "You'd have to like bitter chocolate," Cassandra murmured. Elise smiled. "I already do." Somewhere in the background, people kept whispering, kept laughing. But the woman in the wheelchair no longer looked alone. And Cassandra, for the first time in years, didn't feel like she had to pretend to be anything else. Cassandra didn't consider herself naive. She didn't believe in coincidences, innocent gestures, or interactions without motive. But that night, watching Elise laugh softly at something she herself had just said, Cassandra couldn't even recall the exact words. She felt less guarded than she should have been. It was unsettling. Elise had a strange way of taking up space, unapologetically, yet without intrusion. She didn't look at Cassandra like she was a legend, a mystery, or a warning. She looked at her like she was just there. and for some unfathomable reason, chose to be. When the waiter returned with the dessert menu, Elise took two, handed one to Cassandra without asking. You said I'd have to like bitter chocolate. Now it's your turn. What would you choose if no one expected anything from you? Cassandra raised an eyebrow. You think I live by other people's expectations? Elise shrugged. I think you live trying to prove you don't. Cassandra stared at her. She was used to being read strategically, carefully, with calculated flattery. Elise was different, a far more dangerous emotional threat than any power-hungry executive. And yet there was something about her Cassandra couldn't shake. Maybe it was the way Elise held her gaze without blinking, or how she didn't seem to care about the walls around her. Apple crumble, Cassandra finally said, closing the menu. With ice cream. Elise smiled. Unexpected. I had you pegged for a passion fruit mousse kind of woman. I refuse to be defined by dessert. That's a shame. I make all my judgments based on dessert. Cassandra almost smiled. Almost. Elise laughed, the sound light, and for the first time in years, Cassandra found herself wanting to hear it again. The waiter returned. Elise ordered for both of them like it was the most natural thing in the world, as if this were something they did often, as if they had habits. As if this wasn't a rupture in Cassandra's perfectly constructed solitude. Once they were alone again, Elise leaned forward. Can I ask you something? You've been doing that all night. Elise ignored the tone. Why do you always come here alone? Cassandra paused, not because she didn't know, but because no one had ever asked. Because it's the only place where no one expects me to smile. Elise tilted her head. That's sad. It's practical. It's lonely. Cassandra looked at the candle between them. Sometimes silence is easier than performance. Elise didn't look away. You don't have to perform with me. Easy to say. Harder to believe. Cassandra had lived her whole life being exactly what people expected. Composed, brilliant, distant. Exhausting. And now here was Elise, tearing through that with a kind of brutal honesty that felt like a risk. The dessert arrived. Warm crumble with melting ice cream. Elise dug in immediately, took one bite, and closed her eyes. This should be illegal. Cassandra watched her. The ease, the unfiltered joy. There was something almost enviable about it. Or maybe dangerous. When Elise opened her eyes, Cassandra was still looking at her. Are you always like this? Cassandra asked. Like what? Unarmed. No. Only with people who deserve it. Cassandra picked up her spoon, but didn't take a bite. You're not sure I deserve it yet. You're not easy to read. I'm not meant to be. Maybe, Elise said quietly. You just want to be known. Cassandra didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence was too heavy with truth. Elise glanced at her watch and exhaled. I should go. Something inside Cassandra pulled tight. Do you make a habit of this? Of what? Walking into strangers' lives, peeling them open, and leaving like nothing happened? Elise smiled. Only when it feels like it was worth it. She stood, pulled her coat on, and looked at Cassandra one last time. I'll come back. Cassandra narrowed her eyes. Why? Because you looked at me like no one's ever chosen you before. And I choose you. Cassandra didn't speak. She just watched her go. For the first time in years, she didn't know how to process what she was feeling. But one thing was certain. She wanted Elise to come back. Cassandra returned to the restaurant 4 days later. Not because she had a meeting. Not because she had errands. She simply showed up. Same table. Same time. Same waiter, who didn't bother asking for her order. The apple crumble arrived with quiet precision, and Cassandra sat in that glass and gold cage waiting for something far less predictable than dessert. But Elise didn't come. Not that night. Not the next. Or the one after that. It was absurd. Cassandra Vale did not wait for anyone. She was a storm in the boardroom, a legend in courtrooms, a shadow behind billion-dollar contracts. She moved without hesitation, without distraction, without pause. And yet here she was, 2 coffees in, staring at the entrance of a restaurant as if a ghost might walk through it. A woman who had asked for nothing, offered nothing, and left everything behind. On the sixth night, she didn't return to the restaurant. Instead, she sat by the windows of her penthouse, a glass of red wine in one hand and the city stretching endlessly below. The lights flickered like artificial stars, and yet none of it meant anything. Not that night. That night, all she could think about was the sound of Elise laughing at her own joke and the ridiculous way her eyes had gone soft when she said, "I choose you." Cassandra had no idea what to do with that. So she did what she always did when life became messy. She calculated. She contacted the restaurant management, didn't ask for Elise's number or address yet, but left a clear instruction. If she comes back, give her this. A card. Thick paper. Clean font. One line, handwritten. You were right about me, but also wrong. I never wanted to be known. I just never imagined anyone would try. No signature. She would know. Or Cassandra hoped she would. The following week passed like a fog. Meetings bled into phone calls. Memos were read, but not absorbed. She began cutting conversations short, walking out of presentations halfway through, ignoring messages from people who usually couldn't breathe without her approval. One evening, when a junior partner challenged her on a contract clause during a negotiation, Cassandra simply stood up and left. No rage. No reply. Just the silence of a woman who had no energy to pretend. Her assistant chased her out of the boardroom, panic in her voice. "Ms. Vale, is everything all right?" "I'm tired of people talking without saying anything," she replied, and vanished into the elevator. That night, the doorbell rang. Cassandra never received unannounced visitors. Her building's security was airtight. No one got through unless she allowed it. She opened the door herself. Elise stood there, rain-slicked hair clinging to her face, red coat darker from the storm outside, holding her ground like she'd never left. "You left me a note." Cassandra's grip on the doorknob tightened. "You took your time." "I was deciding whether I believed it." And Elise's eyes didn't leave hers. "I do. Because even without knowing me, you were the most honest person I've met in years." Cassandra hesitated, then slowly moved her chair back. "Come in." Elise stepped inside. Neither of them spoke at first. Cassandra guided her wordlessly through the apartment. Glass, steel, sharp corners, silence. The kind of space that looked like it had never been lived in. Elise stopped in the middle of the room. "Do you live here, or just exist here?" Cassandra let out a short laugh. "You really don't know how to censor yourself. And you really don't know how to live." Cassandra turned to face her fully. "What do you want, Elise?" "A truth." "About what?" "Why me?" Cassandra stared at her, as if weighing whether the truth itself would be a mistake. "Because you saw me." Elise stepped closer. "I didn't come back out of pity. Or curiosity. I came back because I couldn't stop thinking about you." "You shouldn't." "But I did." "And now?" Cassandra's voice was lower now, tighter, like something beneath the surface was beginning to crack. Elise was close enough to touch. "Now," she said softly, "I want to know if you'll let me stay." Cassandra didn't answer immediately. Her eyes moved slowly down Elise's face, then to the coat, then to her hands that trembled just enough to betray how much this moment meant. Finally, Cassandra reached out. Her fingers grazed the sleeve of Elise's coat, fingertips brushing red fabric, sliding lightly to the crease near her wrist. It was a quiet, deliberate touch, but it said everything. Elise didn't move. Cassandra's voice was almost a whisper. "You're going to mess everything up." "Maybe," Elise replied. "But maybe it's the only way to figure out what actually matters." Cassandra closed her eyes. When she opened them again, Elise was still there, still choosing her. And for the first time in years, Cassandra thought about what it might feel like to say yes. It started with tea. Cassandra didn't drink tea, she tolerated it. But when Elise padded into her minimalist kitchen barefoot and soaked from the storm, she insisted. "You need warmth, not performance," she said, and Cassandra, for once, didn't argue. She simply sat there in the soft dimness of her own penthouse, silent, wrapped in a cashmere throw she rarely used, watching Elise move like she belonged in spaces no one had ever been invited into. You have 5 different types of green tea, and not a single chamomile. That's impressive and horrifying, Elise called over her shoulder.
Cassandra smirked faintly.
Chamomile makes me sleepy. God forbid you sleep like a mortal. Mortals don't build empires. Elise turned, mug in each hand, her curls drying into soft waves. She wore an oversized sweater Cassandra vaguely remembered lending her, a sweater she hadn't touched in years. Maybe empires aren't meant to be lived in alone. Cassandra took the mug without comment. Their fingers brushed. The contact wasn't accidental. Elise sat cross-legged on the other side of the sofa, watching Cassandra like someone slowly unfolding a map no one had touched in years. "What happened to you?" she asked gently. Cassandra met her gaze. "Do you want the short version or the honest one?" "Always the honest one." Cassandra looked down into her tea. "I fell in love once. When I was 24. I was reckless. Hopeful. I thought I was allowed to have both love and ambition." Elise said nothing. Just listened. She didn't want the life I wanted. Said I was too much. That I'd never stop chasing more. "Were you?" Cassandra nodded slowly. "Back then, yes. I thought if I stopped to feel, everything would fall apart. And now? Now I know it doesn't matter how much you build, if no one's there to sit with you at the top." The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was full. Elise set her mug down and shifted closer, the movement unhurried. Cassandra felt the weight of her presence, the heat of her body just inches away. She wasn't used to this kind of closeness, physical or emotional. Elise looked at her unblinking. "You keep talking about yourself like you're broken. But I don't see broken. I see a woman who's been alone too long." Cassandra exhaled through her nose. Alone was safer. Safer doesn't mean better. Elise reached forward, slowly, letting her fingers trace Cassandra's hand, up her palm, around her wrist, resting gently against her skin. Cassandra's breath hitched. It was barely a touch, but it was more than she'd allowed anyone in years. "Tell me to stop," Elise whispered. Cassandra didn't. Elise leaned in, her lips inches away. Cassandra closed her eyes, and for one breathless second, all she could feel was anticipation. "Why me?" Cassandra whispered, eyes still shut. Elise's voice came soft, unwavering. "Because you look like no one's ever chosen you just because they wanted to." And then she kissed her.
Soft. Slow.
Not demanding, but certain. Cassandra didn't move at first, her body frozen in a tension she hadn't realized she'd been holding for years. Then something inside her gave way, and she kissed back. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't practiced. But it was real. And when Elise pulled back, just enough to rest her forehead against Cassandra's, neither of them spoke. They just breathed. In that silence, something shifted. Cassandra opened her eyes. "I don't know how to do this." "Good," Elise whispered. "We'll learn together." Later, when they curled into the quiet of Cassandra's bed, a space no one had ever shared, Cassandra lay awake, watching the rise and fall of Elise's breathing. Her chest felt tight, not from fear, but from hope. Terrifying, aching hope. And for the first time since the accident, she didn't feel like she was stuck in a life paused by tragedy. She felt like she was moving again, slowly, but forward. Because Elise didn't see the chair. She didn't see the wealth. She saw her. And that changed everything. Morning came slowly, like it didn't want to disturb them. Pale light crept through the floor-to-ceiling windows, brushing over expensive furniture and untouched art, finally settling on 2 women tangled beneath a linen duvet. Cassandra woke first. She always did. Habit, discipline, survival. But that morning, her instincts didn't pull her toward her phone, or the waiting world of numbers and control. They pulled her toward the woman asleep beside her. Elise. One bare arm draped over Cassandra's waist, breathing soft and steady, hair a tangle of curls across the pillow they'd unknowingly shared. Cassandra watched her for a long moment, as if trying to memorize the impossibility of it. Her bed had never held anyone but her. Not since the accident. Not since she'd rebuilt her life with walls too high for anyone to climb. And now, Elise had slipped past them without even trying. Cassandra's gaze dropped to their joined hands under the covers. She had meant to hold on last night, but she hadn't let go either. Elise stirred. Her lashes fluttered. "Are you staring at me?" she murmured without opening her eyes. Cassandra didn't look away. "I don't stare." "Right," Elise said, smiling into the pillow. "You calculate angles and assess risks. But in bed, it looks suspiciously like staring." Cassandra rolled her eyes, but her lips betrayed her with the ghost of a smile. Elise turned onto her back, stretching like a cat, then let her arm fall across her own face. "God, your sheets feel like clouds. Did you make a deal with heaven?" "Italian cotton." "Of course." Elise peeked at her from beneath her arm. "Do you always wake up this early?" "Yes." "Do you always watch the people in your bed?" Cassandra's expression sobered. "There haven't been any." "Not since," she trailed off. Elise didn't push, just shifted closer, her fingers trailing up Cassandra's arm. "You don't have to explain. I just didn't expect to wake up beside a myth." Cassandra let out a breath, half laugh, half disbelief. "I'm not a myth." "You are," Elise said softly, "but I like the human version better." That struck something deep. Cassandra sat up, pulling the blanket with her, suddenly cold. Elise followed her with her gaze, but didn't touch her again. "Not yet." "This isn't a game to me," Cassandra said. "I know. I don't know how to balance this. You and everything else." Elise sat up, too, legs folded beneath her. "Then don't balance it. Just let it exist." "That's not how my life works." "Maybe that's the problem." Cassandra looked at her sharply. "What do you want from me, Elise?" Elise didn't flinch.
Time. Honesty.
"A chance." "A chance for what?" "To matter to you." Silence fell between them, thick and aching. Cassandra didn't move. Her heart was a clenched fist in her chest, every instinct screaming to retreat. Elise reached forward, not to pull her back, but to steady her. A hand on her knee. A touch, nothing more. "You don't have to prove anything," she said gently. "Not with me." Cassandra blinked once. Then again. And something cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, but a fracture in the fear. She took Elise's hand and held it, not tightly, but like it meant something. Because it did. Later, they had breakfast, real breakfast, which Cassandra hadn't made in years. Or more accurately, Elise made while Cassandra hovered like a woman unsure how to exist in her own kitchen. "Don't touch that," Elise said, slapping Cassandra's hand away from the stove. "You're going to burn down the skyline." "I built the skyline." "Exactly. Let me handle the toast." Cassandra leaned against the counter, arms crossed, pretending not to feel full of something dangerous.
Hope again.
But also fear. She watched Elise move around like she had every right to be there. And the worst part was she did. The ease was terrifying. Breakfast turned into lingering conversation. Lingering conversation turned into lunch. They never officially agreed that Elise would stay the whole day, but neither of them mentioned her leaving. Cassandra found herself laughing, actually laughing, at something about Elise's awful college roommates. At one point, Elise looked at her and said, "You should hear yourself when you're happy." And Cassandra went quiet, not because it hurt, but because no one had ever said that to her. Around 5 p.m., Elise finally moved to grab her coat. "I should go. Give you a chance to miss me." Cassandra wheeled forward slightly. "You don't have to." Elise looked at her, reading all the words Cassandra didn't say. "I want to, but only because I want to come back." "Will you?" Cassandra asked, softer than she meant to. Elise stepped close. "You already know the answer." And then she kissed her. Not like last night. Not careful. Not tentative. This kiss was promise and permission. When she left, the silence that returned to Cassandra's apartment felt different. Not hollow. Not sterile. Just waiting. Like it had accepted that someone might fill it again. 3 days passed. 3 very long, very quiet, very deliberate days. Cassandra hadn't called. Neither had Elise. Not because something was broken, quite the opposite. Because the silence felt intentional. Like both of them were breathing into the space they'd opened. Cassandra filled the hours with work, as expected. The board demanded attention. 2 acquisitions hovered in negotiation, and someone in finance sent a frantic email about a decimal in the wrong place, something that would have made her snap 6 months ago. Now she simply fixed it in 5 minutes and didn't reply. Everything felt muted. Not numb, just quieter. And in that quiet, there was only one voice she kept hearing, Elise's. Laughing, teasing, whispering against her skin. That voice had slipped inside her in ways Cassandra wasn't prepared for. It didn't belong in boardrooms or strategy documents, but it lived there now anyway, uninvited but welcome. On the 4th day, Cassandra broke. She messaged her. "You left a charger here." Obvious excuse to return. Elise replied 10 minutes later. "I don't use excuses. I use doors. Want me to walk through one?" Cassandra stared at the screen, then typed, "Tonight." That was all. Nothing else needed saying. Elise arrived just past 8, wearing that red coat again. Rainless this time, but still electric. Cassandra opened the door herself. Again. Elise stepped inside and kissed her before saying a word. Just a press of lips, familiar now, but never dull. Cassandra exhaled against her mouth. "You taste like wine. You taste like missing me." Cassandra laughed softly, letting her forehead rest against Elise's. "You always come in hot. It's the only way to get past your defenses." "It's working," Cassandra murmured. "I know." They didn't rush. Dinner was simple, takeout, which Cassandra had never allowed before, but Elise refused to eat anything that required 4 words to describe. They sat cross-legged on the couch, dipping spring rolls in too much sauce, drinking wine from crystal glasses, and Cassandra couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so at ease while completely unguarded. "Tell me something real," Elise said suddenly. Cassandra raised an eyebrow. "Everything I say is real."
Fine.
"Tell me something that scares you." Cassandra set her wine glass down. "Losing control." That's the obvious answer. It's also the true one. So, what does control give you that chaos doesn't? Certainty. Power. Distance. Elise tilted her head. "And what if I want to get closer?" Cassandra's mouth opened.
Closed.
Her fingers flexed against the fabric of the couch. Elise leaned in, her hand brushing Cassandra's knee. "You don't have to answer. Not with words." So Cassandra didn't. She kissed her instead. And that kiss was different. Not tentative. Not exploratory. It was hungry.
Deep.
Desperate in a way that had nothing to do with lust and everything to do with fear, of needing, of wanting, of letting go. Elise climbed onto her lap, one knee on either side of the chair, and Cassandra's hands went to her waist like she'd been waiting years for this. "Tell me to stop," Elise whispered against her neck. "I don't want you to stop," Cassandra whispered back. And so she didn't. Clothing peeled away slowly. No rush. Just touch. Warm skin.
Gasps.
Cassandra, always composed, found herself trembling. Elise, always playful, grew reverent. It wasn't perfect, it was better. Because it was real. The wheelchair never left the room, but it also never defined it. The bed came later, after laughter and water and soft apologies for unspoken nerves. But even in that sacred space, Elise treated Cassandra not as someone fragile, but as someone desired. Someone chosen. The kind of love she gave wasn't careful. It was intentional. Every kiss. Every breath. Every whispered name. Hours later, Cassandra lay beside her. The world shifted on its axis. Elise traced slow circles on her bare shoulder, her voice low in the dark. "You keep trying to protect yourself from me. It's not you I'm afraid of." "Then what?" Cassandra stared up at the ceiling. "What I might lose. If I let this be real." Elise rolled onto her elbow, her face close. "You think love takes something away from you?" Cassandra's throat tightened. It always has. Elise leaned in, brushed her lips softly against her cheek. Then maybe you've never had the right kind. Cassandra didn't answer, but she reached for her hand under the covers. Laced their fingers. Elise squeezed once. Just once. And that was enough. The night stretched around them like a secret. Cassandra didn't sleep much. But when she did, it was the deepest rest she'd had in years. It started with a missed message. Then two. Then a full day of silence. Elise wasn't panicked. Not exactly. She wasn't someone who clung or demanded. But she knew the rhythm of things, the natural back and forth that had already started to feel like them. And when that rhythm broke, she felt it in her chest. It wasn't about insecurity. It was instinct. Something had shifted. Cassandra wasn't just busy. She was hiding. Elise waited 2 more days. Not because she wanted to, but because she understood what it meant to give space to someone who had spent a lifetime building walls out of glass and iron. Then, on the 3rd night, she went to her. Cassandra's penthouse looked the same from the outside, cold, pristine, architectural perfection, but when Elise stepped inside, the air felt different. Heavy, as if the silence had multiplied. Cassandra was in her office, facing the wall of windows, the city pulsing below. She didn't turn when Elise entered. "You're early," she said. Her voice was smooth, controlled, but her posture betrayed her. Shoulders too tight, hands curled on the armrests like she was bracing for something. "I wasn't invited," Elise replied, stepping closer. "But I came anyway." "I noticed. You didn't respond to me." "I was busy." Elise crossed her arms. "Try again." Cassandra finally turned. Her eyes met Elise's, and they were unreadable. A shield slammed into place, so fast it nearly knocked the breath out of her. Elise stepped forward. "What happened?" Cassandra looked away. "Nothing." "Don't lie to me." "I'm not lying." "Cassandra, it's better if we don't do this." The words were clean, precise, delivered with surgical efficiency. Elise froze. "Do what?" "This," Cassandra said, gesturing vaguely between them. "Whatever this is becoming. It's not sustainable. You know it. I know it."
No.
"I don't know that." Because it felt real. Cassandra exhaled through her nose, then turned back to the window. "That's the problem." Elise blinked, her throat tightening. "What the hell does that mean?" Cassandra didn't answer right away. When she finally did, her voice cracked in a way that nearly broke Elise's resolve. "I can't need you." "Why not?" Elise demanded, stepping forward again. "Why is needing me the thing that scares you more than being alone for the rest of your life?" Cassandra's jaw clenched. "Because people leave. I'm still here. You won't be. Not forever. No one stays. People get overwhelmed. Or tired. Or they decide I'm too much. And then they leave. So, your plan is to push me out before I can walk away on my own? It's better than waiting for the inevitable." Elise's voice dropped, low and aching. "You don't get to decide what I'm capable of surviving. That's not protecting me. That's controlling me." Cassandra turned sharply, pain flashing across her face. "I've only survived because I control everything. But I'm not a business model, Cassandra. I'm a person. You don't get to optimize me." Silence. Long, devastating. Then Cassandra whispered, "I don't know how to do this." Elise stepped forward, standing directly in front of her now. "Then say that. Be scared. Be messy. Be real with me. But don't shut me out because you're terrified of being loved." Cassandra's breath shuddered. "You deserve more than this than me. Let me decide that. I don't want to break you." Elise's hands moved to Cassandra's shoulders. "Then don't. Let me stay. Let me be one thing in your life that doesn't collapse." Cassandra looked at her. Really looked at her. For a long, soul-crushing second, Elise thought she would say no. But then, her hand reached up, slowly, trembling, and rested against Elise's cheek. "I don't want to lose you. Then don't push me away." Cassandra closed her eyes, leaned forward. Their foreheads touched. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be. You scare me, Cassandra whispered. Elise smiled softly.
Good.
That means I matter. Cassandra pulled her closer, arms circling her waist as if to anchor herself. I don't want to be alone anymore. Elise pressed a kiss to her forehead. Then don't be. That night, they didn't touch each other the way they had before. There was no urgency, no sex. Only a long, quiet kind of intimacy. Lying in bed, fully clothed, Cassandra held on to Elise like a woman bracing against a storm she no longer wanted to face alone. Elise didn't say anything more. She just stayed. Let Cassandra breathe. Let her be afraid. Let her be loved, even if she didn't know how to accept it yet. And somewhere in the middle of that silent surrender, Cassandra whispered one sentence that made Elise close her eyes and fight tears. You make me feel like I'm allowed to exist, not as an empire, but as a person. Elise kissed her shoulder. You are. And I choose you. Not the myth. Not the legend. You. Cassandra exhaled, and for once, didn't try to control it. She just let go. It wasn't the grand gestures that changed Cassandra. It was the subtle ones. The second mug on the counter. The text messages in the middle of a meeting that made her smile in front of executives who thought she'd had her facial muscles surgically frozen. The fact that she started keeping fresh fruit in the fridge because Elise liked pears. Cassandra didn't talk about it. She didn't announce to her team that she was seeing someone, didn't make public declarations, didn't wear it like a badge. But it was there, in the way her edges softened, in the way she paused before cutting people off, in the way she now left the office at 6 sharp instead of 10. Elise had never asked her to change.
She simply was the change.
But balance, real balance, wasn't as graceful as Cassandra wanted it to be. It was messy, complicated, especially when people noticed. One afternoon, during a quarterly review, Cassandra's most senior partner, Leland Hart, leaned over the conference table with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. You seem distracted, Cassandra. Everything all right? Perfectly, she replied, without blinking.
Odd.
I thought I heard you've been leaving early. She tilted her head. And yet profits are up. Fascinating. The room chuckled. Leland didn't. Some of us worry when our CEO suddenly finds herself otherwise engaged. Then some of you have forgotten who built this company from the ground up, she said, voice like silk over steel. And who pays your salaries? Leland backed off, but the message was clear. Cassandra was being watched. And not for her brilliance, for signs of weakness. Or worse, for proof that a woman in a wheelchair, in love, couldn't remain in control. That night, Elise found her sitting by the windows, wine in hand, staring out at the city. Leland said something. Cassandra muttered without turning. The one with the hedge fund smirk and soul of a spreadsheet? The one who's been circling like a vulture since last quarter. Elise walked over, sat on the floor at Cassandra's feet, and leaned her head against her knee. Tell me what he said. And then tell me why it matters. Cassandra ran a hand through Elise's hair. He implied I'm slipping. That I've changed. That I've gone soft. Have you? Maybe. But in the wrong ways, according to them. Elise looked up at her. And in the right ways? Cassandra took a long sip of wine. I feel different. Like the future doesn't have to look like an endless corridor of closed doors. Like I want things I didn't let myself want before. Elise's eyes softened. Like me? Like us. Elise kissed her knee. Then fuck Leland. Let him drown in his bitterness. Cassandra smiled faintly. You make it sound easy. Because I'm not the one with a company to protect. But you are. And you've survived worse than a bitter executive who can't stand seeing you happy. Cassandra set her wine glass down. I'm scared. Of him.
No.
Of what happens if this keeps working. Elise climbed into her lap without asking, arms sliding around Cassandra's neck. Then let it keep working. And let them burn. Days passed. Cassandra kept showing up.
So did Elise.
And slowly, something unfamiliar began to root itself in Cassandra's life. Consistency. Elise didn't flinch when she came home late. Didn't guilt her when she had to cancel dinner. didn't fill silence with demands. She simply stayed. And Cassandra, used to people disappearing at the first sign of complexity, began to believe that maybe, just maybe, Elise meant it when she said she was choosing her. Until the moment came that tested them. Cassandra had a gala to attend, one of those cold, cruel events where everyone wore smiles like weapons and shook hands like predators. She hadn't planned to take anyone. She never did. But as she stood in front of the mirror, in a tailored midnight black gown that made her look even more untouchable than usual, Elise came up behind her and kissed her bare shoulder. "You look like Warren's silk," Elise whispered. Cassandra caught her eyes in the reflection. "Come with me." Elise blinked. "Seriously? I want you there." Elise hesitated. "Cass, I'm not part of that world." "Neither am I, not really. I just mastered how to own it." Elise's lips parted, something unreadable in her eyes. "You're sure?" "Yes." The gala was held in a private museum, all glass ceilings and marble echoes. Cassandra's arrival was, as always, an event. But this time, she had Elise at her side. People noticed. Whispers bloomed like frost. Elise wore black, elegant but simple, her hand resting gently on the armrest of Cassandra's chair like she was the only one in the room who belonged there. Cassandra didn't shrink from the attention. She moved through the room like a queen with her most dangerous secret on display. When Leland approached, drink in hand, his eyes flicked from Cassandra to Elise. "I see we're bringing guests now. You brought your wife last year. I don't recall questioning your professionalism. You're making a statement." "Good," Cassandra said, smiling coolly. It's time they started listening. Leland looked at Elise again, searching for weakness. Found none. Elise smiled like she'd already won. When he walked away, Cassandra exhaled. "That was a mistake," she murmured. "Letting him see you." Elise turned to her.
No.
That was a declaration. Cassandra stared at her. "And what exactly am I declaring?" Elise stepped closer, their bodies nearly touching. "That you're not hiding anymore." Cassandra didn't answer. She didn't need to. The whole room was watching, but the only person she saw was Elise. It didn't take long. The morning after the gala, Cassandra stepped into the office and knew something had shifted. Not just in the air, but in the people. The way her assistant paused slightly before saying good morning. The way two junior analysts glanced up from their screens with two quick smiles. The way Leland wasn't at his desk, but in the boardroom, waiting. She rolled through the hallway, heels clicking faintly behind her, Shannon, her assistant, nervous and overcompensating. "There's a scheduled meeting with the board." Unusual timing, but Mr. Hart insisted it was time-sensitive. Cassandra didn't blink. Of course he did. The boardroom lights were too bright. 12 chairs. 11 filled. She took her place at the head of the table, a deliberate pause before she spoke. "Good morning. I assume this isn't about quarterly projections." Leland leaned forward, smile thin as a thread about to snap. "It's about concern." "Concern is not a corporate metric," Cassandra replied, folding her hands neatly in front of her. "It is when the company's image is at stake." There it was.
Clean.
Calculated. Cowardly. "You're referring to the gala." "We're referring to you, Cassandra," said a woman near the end of the table. "You've changed." Cassandra tilted her head. "I see. Clients are calling," Leland continued. "They noticed the guest you brought. The tone you set." "The tone I set." Personal. Emotional.
Distracting.
For a moment, the room held its breath. Cassandra could feel her old self, the version that would have snapped a pen in her hand, shut them all down with a single venom-laced sentence. But she didn't reach for that version. She reached for Elise. "You're not concerned about my leadership. You're concerned about my humanity." Leland scoffed. "We're concerned about optics." "Ah," she said softly. "There it is. The real word." Silence. Cassandra looked at every one of them.
Slowly.
Firmly. "Let me make something clear. I built this company. I negotiated every deal, survived every collapse, outmaneuvered every competitor. I did it without asking permission. And I certainly won't start now because some of you are uncomfortable with the idea that I might also be capable of love. You think this is about fear, she interrupted. Yours, not mine. Another silence fell, heavy, full of shifting weight. Then Cassandra stood. This meeting is over. You can either adapt or get out of my way. She left the room before anyone could speak. That evening, Elise came over with Thai food and bare feet, and a knot in her brow she hadn't had the night before. You heard, Cassandra said before Elise could speak. Elise nodded. You went to war today. And I won. Cassandra set the takeout on the kitchen island, poured them both wine, but there was a tension in her shoulders that hadn't left since morning. Do you regret it? Elise asked gently. Cassandra turned to her. Do you? I didn't make the choice. You did. Yes, Cassandra said, her voice cool but quiet. But you're the one who made it matter. Elise stepped forward. Then no, I don't regret it. But I need you to know that I don't want to become a fracture in your world. You're not. I might be.
Cassandra didn't speak.
Elise reached for her hand. If it ever becomes too much, if I become too much, tell me before you start pushing me away again. You're not too much, Cassandra said firmly. They are. Elise stared at her. Cassandra stared back. And then, something broke, not badly, not loudly, but deeply. Cassandra pulled her close, hugged her like she hadn't all week. No sensuality, no seduction, just closeness. I'm not used to this, Cassandra whispered into her shoulder. I don't know how to fight with someone and not be afraid of losing them. Elise pulled back just enough to look her in the eyes. Then don't fight me. Fight with me. Cassandra's mouth trembled slightly, her strongest tell. Okay, she whispered. That night, they didn't talk much. But they moved around each other, like people who had made a choice. Cassandra cooked. Elise set the table. They ate in quiet, comfortable rhythm. And when they went to bed, Elise curled into her side like a comma finding the end of a sentence that finally made sense. Cassandra didn't say it out loud, not yet. But in her mind, over and over, the same thing repeated like a truth trying to be born. She is not my weakness. She is the only thing that's ever made me feel strong for being human. Cassandra couldn't stop touching her. Not possessively, not publicly, just small, constant things. A hand at the curve of Elise's waist in the elevator. Fingers brushing her knuckles under restaurant tables. The quiet way her palm would rest on Elise's lower back when no one was looking. It wasn't about ownership. It was about anchor. Elise had become the one fixed point in Cassandra's world of shifting power plays and endless expectations. But with that closeness came vulnerability, the kind Cassandra had spent a lifetime avoiding. It began with her father. Or rather, the letter he sent. It arrived via courier, hand-delivered to the building Cassandra owned, addressed to her legal name in his familiar sharp handwriting. She didn't open it right away. Just stared at it for 2 full hours on her desk, while her phone buzzed with client meetings she ignored. Elise found her like that, still, quiet, with the envelope unopened in front of her and a look on her face Elise had never seen. Want me to burn it? Elise said lightly, but her tone softened when Cassandra didn't respond. Or read it for you? Cassandra shook her head. It's from him. Elise sat beside her without asking. You don't have to let old ghosts in just because they remember the address. Cassandra stared at the envelope. He hasn't written since the accident. He blamed you for surviving. He blamed me for existing in a way he couldn't control. Elise took her hand. Do you want to open it? I don't know. Then don't. Cassandra didn't. Not that night. But she kept the letter. And for the first time in over a decade, she talked about him. Not in clean, emotionless facts, but in quiet, raw fragments that Elise pieced together with patience. How he taught her to be sharp before he taught her to be loved. How he measured value in dominance. How, after the crash, he said, "Weakness is a choice, Cassandra. You've made yours." Elise didn't tell her he was wrong. She didn't say anything at all. She just laid beside her, listening, her thumb gently brushing the back of Cassandra's hand as if to say, "You're not alone anymore." Days passed. The letter remained unopened, but the fear began to lose shape.
It wasn't about him.
It was about what Cassandra had believed for too long, that being seen would cost her everything she'd built. But with Elise, she was learning that being seen was the only way to feel real. One evening, Elise stood at the kitchen counter, barefoot in one of Cassandra's shirts, slicing peaches for a tart they both knew would turn out ugly but delicious. She turned, caught Cassandra staring. "You're doing that thing again." "What thing?" "Looking at me like I'm a question you're scared to answer." Cassandra crossed the room in 2 slow turns of her wheels and stopped just inches from her. "I'm not scared of you." "Then what?" Cassandra's voice dropped. "That I'll ruin it. That I'll make you regret choosing me." Elise set the knife down. "You think you're that powerful?" Cassandra blinked. "What?" "You think you have the power to destroy what I feel for you just by being afraid?" "Cassandra, you already survived the worst thing that could have happened to you. I'm not here to test your limits. I'm here to build something with you." Cassandra exhaled, her chest tight with the kind of emotion she hated showing. Elise stepped closer, pressing their foreheads together. "You're not ruining anything. You're learning. And I'm not going anywhere." Cassandra pulled her close. "I'm not used to this being enough." "Then let it be new. Let it be ours." The kiss that followed wasn't urgent. It was steady.
Sure.
And it carried the weight of everything they hadn't said yet, but would. Later that night, when Elise was asleep against her chest, Cassandra reached for the letter again. She didn't open it, but this time, she didn't look at it like a threat. She looked at it like history. And then she put it away, because the future was in her arms, breathing steady, choosing her without hesitation. And that meant more than anything her past had ever said. It started with a photograph. Cassandra didn't see it first, Elise did. It showed up on her phone in the middle of a quiet afternoon, while she was waiting for Cassandra outside her building, sipping coffee and watching the wind tug at the leaves. The message was anonymous. No name, just an image. Cassandra in her chair, lips close to Elise's ear, smiling in a way the public never got to see. Elise's hand rested on the side of her face. Intimate. Obvious. Followed by 6 words. "You really think you belong there?" Elise stared at the screen, blood cooling. The image wasn't just personal, it was invasive. Stolen. The angles said everything. Someone had been watching them. Watching her. Watching Cassandra. Elise didn't hesitate. She walked into the building, took the elevator to Cassandra's floor, didn't even pause before opening the door with her spare key. Cassandra looked up from her desk, surprised. "You're early." Elise held up the phone. "Someone's watching us." Cassandra's smile faded. She took the phone, stared at the image, and for one terrifying second, Elise saw it. The return of the old mask. Cold. Strategic. "Where did this come from?"
Cassandra asked.
"No name. Just that line." "You really think you belong there?" Elise echoed bitterly. "Someone wants to scare you." It worked. Cassandra's eyes flicked up, sharp now. "Not because of what it means, but because I know what you'll do." Elise crossed her arms. "And what's that?" "You'll start pulling away. You'll tell yourself it's better for me if you step back, or if you're less visible. And I can't let you do that." Elise exhaled. "Cassandra, this isn't just about us anymore. This is targeted. Someone's trying to destabilize you. And the easiest way to do that is through you." Cassandra stood, rolling closer, voice quieter. "I've been attacked before. Not with guns, not with fire, but with perception, reputation,
Shame.
and I've survived every one of them. But I haven't," Elise whispered. "I don't know how to stand in front of something like this and not break." Cassandra's expression softened. "Then we don't do it separately. We do it together. They're going to dig into everything. Let them." "You say that now." "I say that because I know who I am. And I know who you are. And I'm done letting other people dictate the cost of love." Elise's eyes filled, not with fear, but with something heavier. Hope, maybe. Or disbelief that Cassandra Vale, of all people, would choose to fight for this instead of locking it away. Cassandra reached for her hand. You don't run. Not this time. I want to stay. But, then stay. Later that night, Cassandra gathered her legal team. She didn't tell Elise the details, just kissed her cheek before saying, I won't let them touch you. Elise didn't ask for protection. She asked to be believed. And Cassandra believed her. The photo went viral the next day. It landed on business blogs, investor threads, a smear campaign dressed up as shareholder concern. CEO distracted by romance. Leadership in question after personal scandal. Is Cassandra Vale's empire vulnerable? The noise was loud. Cassandra didn't respond immediately. She waited 2 days. Then she published a statement. Short. Surgical.
Public.
My personal life has no bearing on my ability to lead, except that loving someone has only made me stronger. My company remains intact. My position remains unchanged. And the woman I love is not a scandal. She's my clarity. It was the first time she used the word love. Elise read it at home, alone, and had to sit down because her knees gave out. She'd known it, felt it, tasted it in every kiss, but seeing it like that, printed in digital permanence, was something else entirely. Cassandra came home late that night, exhausted but calm. Elise didn't speak, just walked to her, pulled her into her arms, and held her like she never planned to let go. Cassandra's voice broke the silence. You're still here. Of course I am. They won't stop. Then neither will we. Cassandra rested her forehead against Elise's. They'll try to use you to get to me. Then I'll be your armor. And if you break? Elise smiled. Then you'll be mine. Support came from where Cassandra least expected it. Not from the board. Most of them remained politely silent, waiting to see if her empire would bend. Not from clients either, though a few sent veiled messages of neutrality dressed up as professionalism. It came from the women who had watched her build something untouchable and wondered if there was room for softness and power. From strangers online who read her statement and said, finally, someone who doesn't apologize for loving out loud. It came from other CEOs, privately, cautiously, who texted her things like, took guts, and well said. Cassandra didn't respond to most of them. She wasn't looking for applause. She was protecting something sacred. But what she didn't expect, what caught her off guard, was the message from her mother. 3 words. I'm proud of you. It hit harder than anything else. She hadn't spoken to her mother in 2 years. They weren't estranged, not exactly, just frozen in a mutual understanding of boundaries and disappointment. But this cracked something. Cassandra stared at the message for over an hour before typing back. She makes me better. And it was true. Elise brought something into her life that no wealth, no victory, no calculated success ever had. Warmth.
Chaos. Truth.
But even love like that has fault lines. The stress didn't come from their bond. It came from everything around it. The security guards stationed outside her building. The internal risk team reviewing threats and exposure. The endless commentary from people who had never known her but suddenly believed they had the right to measure her worth. Elise handled it all with grace. At first. But grace has limits. One night, Cassandra came home late to find Elise pacing. Not angry. Not yelling. Just vibrating with a quiet tension Cassandra hadn't seen before. What happened? Cassandra asked, immediately alert. Elise stopped moving, arms crossed tight. I got followed. The words dropped like stone. Cassandra wheeled closer, careful. Where? Outside the gallery. I felt it before I saw it. Then someone stepped out of a car, took a picture, didn't even try to hide it. Cassandra's fists curled against the armrests. Did you call security? I didn't want to make a scene. You should have, Cassandra. Elise's voice cut through.
Come.
But final. I'm not telling you, so you can fix it. I'm telling you, because I'm scared. Cassandra froze. Elise never said that. Not even during the worst of it. Not even when the headlines twisted their names into scandal. Cassandra moved closer, reached for her hand. You don't have to be afraid. I'll double security. I'll file a formal, I don't want more bodyguards, Elise whispered. I want to go outside without flinching.
Cassandra said nothing.
Because she couldn't promise that. Elise's eyes shimmered. I knew what loving you would mean. I knew it wouldn't be easy. But I didn't think it would make me question whether I still belonged in my own skin. Cassandra's heart cracked clean in two. You do. With me. Always. Elise took a deep breath. Then tell me this is worth it. All of it. Not just the love. The fire too. Cassandra didn't hesitate.
Yes.
1,000 times yes. Elise nodded slowly, but her shoulders still trembled. Then hold me. Please.
Cassandra pulled her in.
Held her for hours. Until the shaking stopped. Until the fear softened. Until their breathing matched. Later, in bed, Cassandra watched Elise sleep with her face buried in Cassandra's chest. The strength it took to love someone like her wasn't small. It was constant. Relentless.
Brave.
And Cassandra realized this woman had become her center. Not her weakness. Her reason. And in that quiet moment, she made a decision. Something no one had ever seen her do. She was going to step back. Not from Elise. From the world. Just enough. Just long enough to remember that power meant nothing if it came at the cost of peace. Tomorrow she would tell the board. Next week, she would decline the summit invitation. She'd take time. Not because she was failing, but because for the first time in her life, she was choosing love over fear. Not just privately, but deliberately. They left the city at dawn. No bodyguards. No drivers. No itinerary. Just Cassandra, Elise, and a borrowed SUV filled with too many snacks and not enough phone signal. Elise had planned it, or rather, insisted on it. Cassandra needed air.
Space.
Stillness. Not the kind she ruled, but the kind she could breathe in. They drove north until the skyline dissolved into trees and silence, the kind of silence that wrapped around them like permission. Cassandra didn't ask where they were going. She trusted Elise. That, in itself, was new. They ended up at a lake house, a minimalist wooden cabin perched at the edge of still water, hidden by pine and thyme. Elise had found it online, booked it under an alias. No Wi-Fi, she said with a grin as she unlocked the door. You're welcome. Cassandra rolled inside slowly, eyes taking in the soft textures, the fireplace, the wide windows framing the lake like a painting. It's perfect, she said. Elise smirked. Did I just impress Cassandra Vale? You did, Cassandra said, and then she added quietly. You always do. They spent the first day doing nothing. Reading. Drinking tea. Listening to the water lapping gently against the dock. Cassandra let herself be still, fully, for the first time in years. No alerts. No press. No strategy. Just Elise, curled beside her on the sofa, hair pulled into a loose bun, toes cold and tucked under Cassandra's legs. The second day, Elise cooked, badly. The pancakes were burnt, the coffee too strong, the eggs strangely perfect. Cassandra laughed more that morning than she had all month. Later, they took a blanket down to the lake. Elise lay on her back, watching clouds drift. Cassandra stayed upright beside her, hands folded, gaze distant. Where are you thinking? Elise asked. Cassandra hesitated. That this feels fragile, like the kind of peace you don't get to keep. Elise turned to her. Then we protect it, even from ourselves. That night, they made love slow, unhurried, quiet like the cabin. Every touch felt heavier, filled with intention. Cassandra whispered Elise's name like it was a vow. Elise whispered back, Don't go back to the world without me. Cassandra promised she wouldn't. But she hadn't told her everything. Not yet. Because Cassandra had brought something with her. Folded neatly in the bottom of her bag, untouched since the day it arrived. Her father's letter. The third day, Elise found her outside before sunrise, wrapped in a blanket, staring at it. Is that? Cassandra nodded. I didn't want it near you. Not in the apartment. Not in our space. But you brought it here. Because I think I'm ready. Elise didn't ask to read it. She just sat beside her and waited. Cassandra opened the envelope slowly, fingers steady. The paper was heavy, expensive. His handwriting elegant, emotionless. She read it once. Then again. It wasn't cruel. But it wasn't kind either. It was transactional. A long apology disguised as justification. He said he regretted how he'd spoken to her after the accident. That he admired her success. That he didn't understand the path she had taken, but hoped she would remember she still carried his name. At the bottom, no, I love you. Just, I hope you are well. Father. Cassandra folded the letter slowly. Elise touched her knee. How do you feel? Cassandra looked at the lake. Lighter. Because I don't need his permission anymore. Elise nodded. You never did. Cassandra turned to her, eyes soft. I didn't need his. But I need yours. Elise frowned. Mine. To tell you something I've never said before. Elise's breath caught. Okay. Cassandra took her hand. I love you. The words fell like stones into still water, rippling, quiet, endless. Elise blinked hard, then smiled, wide and fierce. Good. Because I love you too. And I've been waiting for you to catch up. They kissed as the sky turned pink over the trees, two women wrapped in blankets, in each other, and in something unbreakable. Love, not the soft, easy kind, but the brave kind. The kind you choose every day, even when it hurts. Especially then. They returned to the city different. More connected. More certain. More aware of just how much they had to lose. The silence of the lake still echoed in Cassandra's mind as she resumed her life. Reduced hours, limited meetings, boundaries enforced with surgical precision. But Elise had changed in subtler ways.
She still laughed.
Still stole Cassandra's sweaters. Still kissed her with the same fire. But there was a distance in her eyes sometimes, a kind of flicker Cassandra couldn't name. At first, she chalked it up to exhaustion. The aftermath of media scrutiny, the pressure of visibility. But then one night, Cassandra walked into the kitchen to find Elise frozen, staring at her phone, face drained of color. What is it? Cassandra asked immediately. Elise looked up slowly, as if she'd been yanked out of another lifetime. It's nothing. That's not true. Elise hesitated, then handed Cassandra the phone. A name flashed across the screen. No message. Just a missed call. Cassandra didn't recognize it. Who is this? Someone from before you, Elise said. Cassandra watched her. Waited. Elise took a breath, bracing herself. His name is Caleb. He was my ex. We were together for 3 years. He wasn't violent. Not physically. But he controlled everything. What I wore, where I went, who I spoke to. He made me believe I was hard to love. That no one would ever want the real me. Cassandra's stomach tightened. Did he hurt you? Elise's voice wavered. Not in ways people could see. And when I finally left, he started showing up. At my work. My building. Nothing I could prove. Always polite. Always public. He made me look crazy. And now he's calling again, Cassandra said, her voice cold and low. Elise nodded. I blocked him years ago. I don't know how he got this number. Cassandra was already reaching for her laptop. Give me 5 minutes. Elise placed a hand over hers. Please don't go full Valkyrie on him yet. Cassandra looked up, jaw tight. He made you feel unsafe. That's enough. I know. But I also know what it feels like to have someone else take control of your fear. I just needed to tell you. Cassandra softened instantly. You always can. You don't have to carry it alone. I've never let anyone carry it with me before. Then let me be the first. That night, Cassandra didn't sleep. While Elise curled against her, breath steady, Cassandra stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind sharpening into something surgical. She wasn't just in love, she was responsible. Not for Elise's past, but for making sure it never touched her again. The next day, without asking permission, Cassandra launched an investigation.
Quiet.
Legal. Ruthless. Within 48 hours, she had everything: Caleb's workplace, address, background, employment history. She didn't confront him. She didn't threaten. Instead, she filed a private restraining order through a judge she trusted, assigned 2 plainclothes security officers to shadow Elise from a discreet distance, and changed every password Elise had with her gentle, furious precision. Elise found out 3 days later when her phone wouldn't unlock. "Cassandra," she said flatly. Cassandra looked up from her tablet. "Yes? Did you hack me?"
No.
"I secured you." Elise exhaled, equal parts touched and annoyed. "You could have told me. You would have told me not to." "That's not the point." Cassandra stood and crossed the room. "The point is, no one gets to make you feel unsafe. Not while I'm in your life." Elise stared at her, heart full and aching. "You're not just in my life. You're part of me now." "Good," Cassandra said, brushing a curl from Elise's face. "Because I don't plan on going anywhere. Even if I come with baggage? Especially then." They kissed in the middle of the living room, fierce, grateful, raw. Elise let herself be held, and for the first time, Cassandra realized that protecting someone didn't mean making choices for them. It meant standing beside them when they were too tired to stand alone. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Elise whispered, "I've never told anyone about him. Not all of it." Cassandra kissed her shoulder. "Then you just did. And I'll carry it like it's mine." Elise smiled in the dark. "You already do." It was raining the day Cassandra proposed. Not dramatic rain. No thunder, no lightning, just a quiet, steady drizzle that turned the city into a silver blur, softening its usual sharpness. Cassandra hated clichés. She'd always despised the idea of grand romantic gestures designed to impress instead of reveal. But this wasn't about performance. This was about certainty. And she had never been more certain of anything in her life. She didn't take Elise to a fancy rooftop or a candlelit dinner. She took her to the first place they met, the restaurant where Elise had sat down without asking, where everything had started with a crumble and a challenge. The table by the window was empty when they arrived, like it had been waiting. Cassandra wore black, always black. Elise wore red. Also always. Their opposites had never felt more in sync. "Do you remember what you said to me?" Cassandra asked once they were seated. Elise smirked. "I said you looked like you wanted to scream, but chose to stare at a candle instead." "You weren't wrong. You were terrifying. So were you." "I still am." "I know," Cassandra said, smiling. "That's why I love you." Elise's smile softened, eyes flickering with something Cassandra had come to crave, unfiltered affection. "You've said it more lately. I've felt it more lately." "Because of me?" Cassandra reached into her coat and placed a small, flat box between them. "Because of us." Elise stared at it. Then at her. "Cass, I know you don't need this. I know we're already everything. But I want to do something terrifying." "Say it." "I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you."
Not because I need to.
Not because I'm afraid to lose you, but because loving you is the strongest, clearest, most powerful thing I've ever done. Elise swallowed, eyes glistening. "Are you proposing to me at the same table where I ambushed you with dessert?" "Yes," Cassandra said, steady. "Because you didn't just interrupt my dinner. You interrupted my entire life." Elise opened the box with trembling fingers. Inside, a ring unlike any she'd ever seen. Dark gold. Simple. No diamond. Just an engraved line inside the band. She chose her. Elise laughed through a choked breath. "God, of course you engraved it with the headline." "It was always ours," Cassandra whispered. "Let's make it permanent." Elise slid the ring onto her own finger.
Yes.
"Obviously, yes. Even if I have to eat that bitter chocolate crumble again, every year, as a tradition." "It's grown on you."
No.
"You've grown on me." "Same thing," Cassandra murmured. They kissed across the table like the world wasn't watching. And for once, maybe it wasn't. Maybe the world had finally given up trying to shrink what they had into something it could explain. 2 years later, they still lived in the penthouse, but it had changed. Warmer. Messier.
Lived in.
Elise's scarves draped over chairs. Cassandra's books stacked in places they didn't belong. Matching mugs. 2 toothbrushes. A shared life. They still had bad days. Arguments. Silence. But never distance. Never retreat. Elise painted again. Cassandra had cut her work hours by half. The empire didn't fall. It evolved. When people asked how they made it work, Cassandra always said the same thing. She didn't try to fix me. She loved me until I felt safe enough to become who I really was. And Elise? She said, she didn't ask me to shrink. She met me in the fire and chose to burn with me. They returned to the lake every year. Same cabin. Same dock. Same sky. And one morning, while Elise painted the reflection of the water and Cassandra watched her from the porch with coffee in hand, Elise turned and said, "You're staring again." "I don't stare. You calculate." "I cherish." Elise smiled. Still terrifying. Cassandra nodded. Always. They kissed like it was the first time. And the last. And every time in between. Because the world hadn't given them an easy path. But they'd walked it anyway. Together. Every step. Every scar. Every stubborn, burning choice. Until it was no longer just a story. It was their life. And they had chosen each other all the way through.